Hi everyone, I'm Abigail, this is Owen, and welcome to another Two Kids interview. We are joined by author Sarah Aronson. Some of Miss Aronson's books include Beyond Lucky, Headcase, Brand New Bubby, Believe, Just Like Rube Goldberg, and the book series The Wish List. Thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
You write children's books. How are your books influenced by your own childhood?
They're influenced by my own childhood a lot. One of the first things I do when I come up with a character is I think back to when I was a kid growing up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I think about the things that were important to me. I actually even make maps of my memory. Like I'll draw a picture of my neighborhood and then put all the memories I can think of and think about what kind of emotions those memories trigger, and then think about that as I move forward in my story.
Did you write a lot as a child?
Okay, this is a big confession. So not that much. I mean, like when I had to for school, here's the first book I ever made in like fourth grade. It's called Prince Charming's Adventures. And I am not much of an artist. As you can see, there's a reason I'm not an illustrator.
Beautiful.
And so I wrote when I had to, but I wasn't really a reader or a writer until I had a teacher, Mr. Sigley, who really made it a point to help me find the books I would love. And so the first book I really ever loved was Harriet the Spy. Have you read Harriet? Oh,
No,
you got to read Harriet. It's such a great book.
sounds like one.
In particular because she spies, and I liked the idea of that, but also it had to do with New York City. And I, growing up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, I so very much wanted to live in a city. Yeah, that's part of the answer. But let me just also add, I didn't start writing professionally until someone dared me. So, like, I'm going to dare you, both of you, write your stories.
When a child reads one of your books, what do you hope they will get out of it?
So each book begins with something that means something really important to me. So, like in the wish list, the first thing that I thought about when I was writing about fairy godmother training was being the sister of a person who it seemed like everything she did was easy and everything I had to do was difficult. And that I could never measure up. My sister is awesome, but at the time I found her very annoying. I know neither one of you would ever identify with that. So that really instigated, so that made me feel something about Isabel. And I want my readers to understand that and to validate that experience and also think about it for themselves. Sometimes we all feel like we don't measure up and that we really have inner strengths. We all have different strengths. And when you think about the wish list and the three things that you need to be a great fairy godmother, really, there are three things you need to do whatever you want to do. Be kind to others and yourself, be determined, work really hard, and have gusto, which is like a lot of enthusiasm. Now, when you think about a book like Rube Goldberg, the message is a little bit the same, but also different. Rube Goldberg's story is a true story, and I had to stick to the facts. But in the end, what I realized about Rube was that he believed in creativity like I do. And sometimes he believed, and he also believed in being determined like I do. And so I want kids to look at Rube and say, okay, I can be creative too. I can be determined too. And then I can get what I want.
How do you come up with the ideas for your books?
So ideas come from lots of different places. So sometimes I get ideas by walking next to Lake Michigan. It's really pretty, and it clears my head and lets me think. Sometimes memories. Sometimes I eavesdrop on people. Have you ever gone to the Brothers K coffee shop? So it's in Evanston. And at that coffee shop, sometimes I go there and I drink a cup of coffee and I listen to people talking. I listen to the words they use and the things that they're interested in. And sometimes that gives me an idea. And of course, reading, it gives me tons of ideas. Reading about other kids, reading about the world, reading about big problems, those world events, those things get in my brain, and then my brain starts swirling. It's like right now I'm writing about a girl who thinks revenge is going to be satisfying, but spoiler, it isn't.
What is your process when putting a book together?
So the first part of the process is to draft the story. And your draft, like in school for both of you, we have sloppy copy. Like your first draft is not your last draft. It's just stinky writing, like Swiss cheese, as my friend Ellie Swartz likes to say, stinky and full of holes. And so you write to discover your story. Beyond lucky, I had to write like that about 10 different rounds before I really found the story. Same with Brand New Bubby. I had to write that story a bunch of times before I figured out how I was going to tell the story. Brand New Bubby was originally called Camp Grandma. It's a journey. Then once I have found the story, then I edit it. That means I have to be tough on myself. That means I have to ask friends for advice. That means I have to do a lot of listening. It means I have to have no ego whatsoever, because a lot of times I'm wrong in the beginning. I make mistakes. And then finally, I send it to my editor or my agent. And then they start asking me new questions. And when all of that is done and we're all satisfied, we either, for a picture book, give the book to an illustrator, or for a novel, we give the book to the designer. And then they continue to do more work until the whole thing is done.
Can you tell us about a time where you were doing something and know someone or something and thought, I can't put that in a book?
Yes, everyone should be careful around their writer friends. I think that my sister would feel this most keenly, Miriam, because I write about our relationship a lot in the wish list. And so when once she told me she had 38 friends and I had 3 friends, and I think that that's in the book. At least that inspired scenes in the book. But it's also from my own real life. When I first decided to write about Rube Goldberg, I remembered a time when I saw Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the movie, and saw The Breakfast Machine. And I loved it so much, I started making my own breakfast machine and I broke a lot of dishes. And that kind of memory always goes into my books.
Seems it's important to have Jewish characters. Why is that?
Well, I think that, so when I was little, the only Jewish characters that I could find were in All of a Kind Family and in Holocaust stories. And so when I became a writer, when I took the dare, one of the most important things for me to do was to celebrate Jewish kids just being kids, real life Jewish people who maybe other people hadn't heard about. I think if there's a teacher and librarian and thinker named Rudine Sims Bishop, and she talks about windows and mirrors, that all readers, young readers, need to see themselves in books and need to see others, because when we meet other people in books, we see that they're just like us in some ways and a lot not like us in others, and that we can have empathy about that. So if our business is partly the business of empathy, that's why I want to write about Jewish kids, so that Jewish kids can see themselves in books, but also so kids who have never met a Jewish person will say, hey, Jewish kids are just like us. They want the same things we do.
When you took the dare to become an author, did you worry at all if you could do it?
Strangely enough, not really, but maybe I should have. I used to be a physical therapist, and I used to teach a lot of fitness classes, and I did not lack in confidence that I could do this. I'm very lucky that my family is very supportive, because it took a long time for me to learn. I had to go to school, and I probably got 150 rejections before I got my first yes. I know. Thank you. Say that. Let's say that out loud. Wow.
Wow. What writer has the most influence on you?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, of course, Judy Blume. I loved Judy Blume's books when I was a girl. I actually took home a copy of Blubber from the library, and I still have it to this day. I paid my fines. That part of the wonderful thing about the children's writing community is that we're all very connected and we help each other. So people like Nikki Grimes, whose new book I want to recommend to all your readers, A Walk in the Woods, absolutely beautiful, illustrated by Brian Pinkney in honor of his father, Jerry Pinkney, who died shortly but after this book was signed. I love, here's another one that I absolutely love. This is The Lost Package by Richard Ho and illustrated by Jessica Lannon, who I got to meet last week. She's super nice, and Richard is too. And I love this book because I always wondered what happens when a package gets lost. And my really good friend who also lives in Chicago, Barb Rosenstock, is a really good influence, as is Candy Fleming and Tanya Lee Stone and Ellie Swartz. We all help each other. I teach other writers at the Highlights Foundation. You may have read Highlights magazine. You probably see it. We like to say in the doctor or the dentist's office. And at the Highlights Foundation, we work together so that everyone can find their story. And I get to teach lots of classes to help people discover what their story is and how to make it better.
Did you see the Judy Blume movie, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret?
I loved it. I'm going again. I loved it. There's also a documentary just about Judy, and it is fantastic. It's like a 5-tissue movie. It made me cry, both of them.
What advice do you have for young people who want to write?
So have fun writing. Eat dessert first. Write what you feel strongly about. Have fun while you do it. Don't get bogged down by rules, because you're going to break them anyway. So instead of worrying about even grammar in the beginning, just find your story. Find other friends who like stories. Read. It's really important to read if you want to be a writer. I have never met a writer who doesn't read. Be easy on yourself. That kindness to others, extend it to yourself, because we all make mistakes. We all need lots of drafts. Beyond Lucky, 38 drafts in total. Just like Rube Goldberg, 12 drafts in total. A book I have coming out next year about Bella Abzug, who I can't wait for you to learn about, because she was awesome. She was loud. She wore a hat. She changed the world. She was a trailblazing feminist. That took 8 years of revision to get it right. So patience is really important, even though waiting is the hardest thing in the universe to do. So all those things combined, find your people, take it easy on yourself, play, have fun, experiment, draw, whatever you can to keep going. And don't be afraid to share your stories, because sharing the stories is what is like the bonus. And then you get to talk about it.
Do you have any other projects in the works that you can tell us about?
So this project about Bella Abzug called Abzuglootly comes out in 2024. And right now I'm editing a book about a guy named Marty Glickman, who was the voice of New York sports for 55 years. But before that, he made the Olympic team that went to Berlin in 1936. And the morning of the trials, his coaches told him he couldn't run because they're of anti-Semitism. That's another reason why I write about Jewish people, is because we have to fight anti-Semitism and we have to lift the curtain and make room for love instead of hate. So those are two projects I'm working on now. I'm drafting a novel about this girl who is going to find out that revenge is not so sweet. And have you ever read The Carp in the Bathtub? Did you ever have to read that book? All right, ask your mom about it. So it's a book about Passover, and I'm trying to write a modern version of it because I don't like how that version ends. So I want a new one.
Finally, it's time for Turbo 10. 10 rapid fire questions.
I'm ready.
Number 1, what is your favorite phrase to use?
My favorite phrase, the truth was, ...
Number 2, what is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
I would love to learn more about pain and the science behind pain and how we get rid of pain. And I'd like to write a book about that.
Number 3, what is your go-to snack food?
My go-to snack food, I love the goldfish pretzel.
What was your favorite book growing up?
Harriet the Spy for sure. Also the Carrot Seed. The Carrot Seed was a book, it's 101 words long, but originally it was 10,000 words long. And it's absolutely perfect at 101. I defy anyone to add to it. I love it.
Number 5, if you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
If I could transport somewhere right now, I would transport myself to York, England, where I lived in 1973 and in 1978. It's a city with a wall around it, and they're finding all these Roman remains and artifacts underneath the York Minster, and I would love to go back and see it.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I think curiosity is my superpower, because whatever I'm curious about, I'm going to write about. But if I could have a magical superpower, I would definitely fly.
Number 7, what was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
I love Underdog. I bet you don't know Underdog. I loved it. My kids, what did my kids? Well, my kids loved all the Disney movies, but they also liked SpongeBob.
What is your favorite rainy day activity?
My favorite rainy day activity, besides reading, is cooking. So in the back of Brand New Bubby, there are lots of soup recipes. I love to cook, and sometimes I give myself the chopped challenge. I open up my pantry and fridge, and I try to make a gourmet meal out of what I have without going shopping.
Number 9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who would they be?
Oh, 3 dinner guests. All right. So definitely. So I'm going to say the 3 people I'm writing about: Rube Goldberg, Bella Abzug, and Marty Glickman. But who wouldn't invite Einstein or Shakespeare or Jane Austen? I can't stop at 3.
And finally, what is the best piece of advice you were ever given?
The best piece of advice I was ever given was eat dessert first. Do what moves you. Do what makes you happy, what brings the joy, because doing that is going to give you confidence. And confidence means you're going to be able to try things that maybe you don't think you know how to do yet. But it's okay, because you're going to fail and then you're going to get back up again. You're going to try again and you're going to learn stuff, and then you're going to fail again, because failure is a step towards success and you can't do it without it. So that is eat dessert first is the best advice given to me by my first editor, and I have lived by it ever since.
You did great. Thank you so much for doing that.
You did great too. Thank you.
And Ms. Aronson, thank you for spending this time with us. We appreciate it so much. And we can't wait to read your future books.
Thank you so much. I am honored to have spent this time with you. It was really fun. Keep in touch, and keep reading.